Hi friends, welcome to Learn with Mr. Nova. In this video, I am going to present to you the differences between a router and a switch. As you can find, this is a diagram of a switch and this is a diagram of a router in a local area network. When building a network, the two most important pieces of equipment you highly need are switches and routers. Though they are similar, but they perform a different function. So just stay tuned and watch this video to the end. If it's your first time visiting this channel, please kindly like, subscribe and click the notification icon so that you not miss anything out. Okay, if you have done so, then we can kickstart. So with respect to the differences, I'm going to begin with the definition, what a switch is all about and what a router is all about. So the first point I'm going to differentiate between these devices is their definition, what they are. Okay, I'm going to begin with a switch. A switch is a network device that acts as a central connecting point for multiple devices in a network. That is, a switch connects devices such as PCs, it connects devices such as printers, such as servers, such as iPhone, such as laptops, such as access point, scanners, and many more to create a network of shared resources. So a switch acts as a central connecting point for multiple computers or multiple devices to create a network of shared resources. While a router is a device that is used to connect multiple switches in a network. Like a router connects multiple networks to form an internetwork. This is a network, this is a local area network, and this is another local area network. So a router connects these two networks so that there can be communication. It's with the help of a router that this network, let's say this network 1 and this is network 2, it's with the help of a router that these two networks can communicate over the internet. Okay, the second difference I'm going to present to you between a router and a switch is with respect to cost. So with respect to cost, a router is costlier as compared to switches. The cost of purchasing a router it can even double that of a switch. Yeah. So with respect to cost, a router is costlier than a switch. Now, the third difference is with respect to the number of ports. So, with respect to the number of ports, a router by default has about two fast Ethernet ports, though the serial ports can be added, but most routers have just two to four ports. While there are switches of different ports. There are switches with 4 ports, there are switches with 8 ports, there are switches with 16 ports, there are switches with 24 ports, and there are switches with even 48 ports. So a switch is a kind of a multi-port bridge. So a switch contains a greater number of ports as compared to routers because the purpose of a switch is to connect multiple devices, while the purpose of a router, it connects switches in a network and equally route data from one network to another. Now the fourth difference I'm going to present to you with respect to the layer model. A router, it's one of the devices that functions at the network layer of the OC model. So a router functions at the network layer of the OC model, while switches are examples of devices that functions at the data link layer, that is a layer 2. So a router functions at the layer 3 of the OC model, while switches function at the layer 2 of the OC model. And with respect to the DOP model, that is the Department of Defense model, DOP or the TCP/IP model, a router functions at the network layer, that is a second layer, while switches function at the network access layer or the link layer, that's at the first layer. Okay. Now, with respect to the protocol data unit, protocol data unit is just a unit of sending data from one device to another over the network. So with respect to the protocol data unit, a router sends data from one device to another device in the form of packets, while layer 2 switches send information from one device to another in the form of frames and in the form of packets for layer 3 switches. There are layer 2 switches and layer 3 switches. Layer 3 switches behave somehow like routers. So Switches send information in the form of frames and routers in the form of packets. But the exception here is layer 3 switches can send information in the form of packets. Okay, now with respect to types, there are two. Let me begin with the router. There are two types of routers. We have the wireless routers and the wired routers. From the name, wireless routers are routers that do not need cables to get devices connected to them. So just simply use signals where they are just devices are connected to these routers wirelessly without cables and within a specified range. Now, and while wired routers are routers that requires cables to connect devices, like for example, you can find on the diagram, for a cable to get connected from the router to a switch, you need this is just an example of a wired router, that wire routers that requires cables for devices to get connected to them. Okay, while there are two types of switches, we have the managed switches and the unmanaged switches. So the managed switches are switches that the administrator has a lot of role to play over them. That is, they need configuration. Managed switches need configuration. That is, the administrator can do several configurations on them, port security and many more. While the unmanaged switches don't need configuration, they are just plug and play devices. Okay, and so with respect to scope, a router can function in a local area network and in a metropolitan area network. So routers function both in a local area network and in a metropolitan area network, while switches function only at the local area network. So example, the most important devices you have at the local area network are switches, but router functions both at the local area network and the metropolitan area network. And lastly, with respect to storage, a router stores the IP addresses in the routing table. So a router stores the IP addresses of both the source and destination devices in the routing table. When you go in the router's routing table, the command most often that can be used to display the content of the routing table is the show IP route command. With the help of that command, you can be able to see the routing table of a router, where you can find the various interfaces and their various IP addresses being connected to those respective interfaces. While for a switch stores the MAC address of the source and the destination device in the lookup table. A switch stores the MAC address in the lookup table, or you can call it the content addressable memory table. That is a CAM table. CAM. So a switch stores the MAC addresses in the content addressable memory table, or you can call it a lookup table, while a router stores the IP addresses in the routing table. So these are some key differences that you can use to differentiate between these two devices, a switch and a router. So thanks so much for watching the video, and thanks for your time. And if you haven't subscribed at the beginning, please kindly do so to promote the channel, and stay tuned for more videos as this. Stop. Jesus Christ.